This channel is made possible by viewers like you. My viewers, subscribers, and patrons greatly help to keep this channel going. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all of you. Please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get access to what I'm working on, previews of upcoming content, and even early videos, along with other tier options for those that are interested. Thank you, and now on to the video. The System Shock remake might be one of the best things to come out of 2023. I never played the original, or its sequel. My first experience with any of these Shock-titled games is with BioShock, so if you're a big fan of the original 2 System Shocks, please forgive my ignorance. I'm just starting out, and I think I see why a lot of people really enjoy this game, and in particular the remake, and now I'm just trying to learn and get better at it. This definitely feels old school, and I mean that in the best possible way. I honestly spent much of my beginning time with this title having no idea where I needed to go, or what I needed to do, and yet I was having a lot of fun with it. This might not be a title that will be for everyone, but I do think that it is one that everyone should at least try. So one thing that really stood out to me as one of the best aspects to the game is its exploration. You generally feel like you are exploring this heavily textured and detailed place. Right from the start, you are presented with many different ways to go, and being that I am so new to this, I cannot confidently say if there is a right way to go, or maybe there isn't and it's up to how you tackle the game. It felt like I was going through these spaces, not flying through them just to get to the next event or something like that, but rather scanning them, ingesting them, and really taking them in. The spaces you go through are like diving into a new character. What happened here? Who were the people that were involved? What were their stories before it all went bad? Now there are aspects to the exploration that help to provide a more direct story, but the visuals and honestly how the game operates makes everything feel dense in the sense that it feels like a real place. The exploration is furthered through how well done the atmosphere is. This is a horror game in many ways. I should clarify that I never felt scared with my time with it, but I always felt on edge. As you quickly learn, pretty much everything is out to kill you in this game, so every time I went into a new room, I never knew what new foe I would find, and as the game likes to surprise you, new enemies might turn up on a familiar corner, or at least it felt that way. I was uneasy the whole time I was playing it, and always absorbed by what it had to offer. The first 15 minutes is very linear. It sort of sets up the game narratively, and then it's all up to the player to explore and discover for themselves. System Shock is a very hands-off experience, and one that I think requires you to be in the right mood for it. If you exclusively play modern AAA titles, you might find the hands-off nature to the game very frustrating. And even though I play a good amount of new, old, and indie titles, I even found myself getting a bit frustrated with this one as well. I honestly cannot fully explain all the mechanics I was encountering, or haven't even touched many of them because of where I am in the title. But what I did feel was that it kept pulling me back in. That through this figuring it out type of design and hands-off exploration, that even though I didn't fully grasp everything, nor did I fully understand it and was frustrated by some of it, it was most certainly pulling me in. This became apparent when I would look at the clock and it would magically jump another hour that felt like 5 minutes. Now yes, there is combat. I have battled with a few different types of robots, cyborgs, and even some mutated creatures. I have spent much of my combat with melee weapons. These do feel clunky to use, and I think they could benefit from sound effects that have a bit more impact to them. What I mean by this is that you don't really feel that smack that you would want from hitting something, but other than that, they get the job done. I did find 2 different guns to use, and they both handled well, and gave me that appreciated range that I wanted up against all these monsters.
Are you going to be here?
It is really refreshing when we get to experience games like this. The figuring it out type of design and leaving much of the stuff up to the player is something we really don't see much anymore. I know that this can lead to frustration, especially with how many big games are made today. Many of those titles are constructed in such a manner to carefully guide the player, but rather than doing it through interesting design, this is done through cluttered HUDs and means to spoon feed the player, rather than really giving them the room to look at something, play with it, maybe screw up a bit, and then having something click. Playing a game like the System Shock Shock Remake is, in a good way, kind of like a shock to many modern gamers who don't really play this type of stuff, because while there is frustration incorporated with it, I would argue that this sort of figuring it out type of stuff that ends up staying with you the most. Having the room to make those choices and then seeing the outcomes are the many player created stories that stay with each player and makes each experience so individual. And I'll admit that when I came up to my first puzzle, I was even scratching my head for a bit. When I got to the first pipe puzzle, I immediately thought, oh, I've seen something like this in BioShock. I tried completing it, but I obviously wasn't doing it right. I was missing something. While the pipe BioShock puzzles are fun, they're not like this. In System Shock, they throw the puzzle at you and say, okay, now you figure it out, without much guidance. I almost felt stuck, and then it clicked. I was able to move on to explore the next area I wanted to go in. Stuff like this creates a specialness to the game. Like I said, what really pulled me in was the exploration and how hands-off it was. It felt like I was making impactful decisions at every turn. Should I search this room, or go to another? Oh, I found a new area, but it's contaminated. I better save this for later. I wish I had better weapons, and then finding a gun, but then having all that hope leave me as I realized it was a broken gun, which made it that much more satisfying when I actually found guns that worked. The thrill of entering a new area, thinking I can handle the combat thrown at me, but then quickly getting overwhelmed and learning that I need to get better at creating more manual saves. Now, as someone who is experiencing this all for the very first time, I am really liking the work that the developers put into this title. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, as I do not have this historical knowledge, but it does seem like they really tried to be authentic to the original game. Now, the reason I say this is because it feels like an older game with a new coat of paint, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all. Often on this channel, I find it refreshing to play new games that are inspired by older styles, rather than going for some current trend. For many of those now older games, there are elements that feel oddly refreshing to see in a game today. The System Shock Remake is very hands-off, and an enjoyable game with plenty of exploration, and while it has received a good amount of praise, I think considering how different this is compared to many other big titles coming out, along with it being a remake of a beloved title, it seems like this game deserves just a bit more attention. I'm not saying this is underrated, but I do think it's a bit overlooked. Currently it's only on PC, and I believe it's coming to consoles at some point this year or next. Keep an eye on this one, and while I don't think I'm good at the game, it is one that I recommend you give a try. With me trying to cover many different games and only having so much time, is this a title you would like to see me cover more on this channel? Have you played the original? How does the remake stack up? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in being notified of new videos, please hit the subscribe button and bell. And if you would like to support the channel and get early access to content, please check out my Patreon. All of the links will be at the end of this video and within the description. And thank you very much for watching.